We have been discussing a novel entitled A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. In the last part of our lecture, we discussed the main characters in the novel. We also discussed the themes in the novel, right? We discussed the literary career of E.M. Forster. Then we went through the important characters and we saw that we don't have a crowd of characters in the present novel. We went through the characters like the protagonist Dr. Aziz. We saw Dr. Aziz and his attitude towards the British people. We saw that he is very gentleman, very intelligent and friendly also. That one we saw a very open-minded character, that is Mrs. Moore. She belongs to England. She is interested to see India and Indian culture. She wants to have a friendship with Indians. We come to know that Mrs. Moore comes with her would-be daughter-in-law, and her would-be daughter-in-law is Adela Quested. So both the ladies, Adela and Mrs. Moore, they come to India to see India and to see Indian culture. So Adela is engaged with the son of Mrs. Moore, and the son's name is Ronnie Heslop. And we saw that Ronnie Heslop is totally opposite to his attitude regarding Indians, right? And Ronnie's attitude is totally different from Mrs. Moore and Adela. So Ronnie hates Indians. And according to Ronnie, Indians are wild, uncultured creatures, right? So according to Ronnie, there cannot be a friendship between Indians and the British, as British are superior superior to Indians. We also went through the character, that is Cyril Fielding. We know that he is a British and he is what to say a principal or say a headmaster in the local college, right? And by birth he is a British, and Henry Fielding is open-minded just like Adela and Mrs. Moore. So Fielding is a supporter of a friendship between Indians and the British. So later on, Fielding and Aziz become good friends. Next, we discuss the character of Professor Godbole, and we saw he is a Hindu Indian Brahmin, and Godbole, Fielding, and Dr. Aziz, they are good friends of one another. And the three characters, Dr. Aziz, Godbole, Fielding, right? They become friends of the British woman, that is Adela and Mrs. Moore later on, right? So these are the characters over here. We went through the settings and we saw that the whole story happens in India, and the center of the events in the present story is Chandrapur. It's the area, it's the city, right? And the next setting of the story is Mau. And the story of the present novel has been divided into three parts. The first part has got the name, that is mosque, right? Mosque here means masjid, right? The second part is entitled as caves. It means lenya, your guha in Marathi. The third part is entitled as temple, that is mandir in Marathi, right? So these three parts have been over there, has been out there, okay. The places are always symbolic, right? So one more place is there, that is Marabar Caves, right? And the turning point in the story happens over there, that is Marabar Caves, right? So you can see the titles, mosque, caves, and temple. Later we went through the themes, just like the novelist tries to highlight imperialism of the British Empire, then the superiority complex of the British people, that is a race, and the attitude of the English women, that is Mrs. Moore and Adela, right? That has been granted over here. There is one more thing is that there is love and friendship. It is between the British and the English people. That's the thing. Religion and nature. In the present novel, as we know that the first part has been entitled as mosque and the last part is entitled as temple. So in the present novel, the novelist also tries to compare and contrast the three religions. First is Hinduism, second is Muslim religion, and the third is Christianity, that is Christian religion. What kind of comparison he tries to have in the present study, we will see in our later discussion. So let's begin with the story. I assume that characters are very clear to you, their attitude also. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go towards the plot summary. Right. So the two British women, Adela Quested and her elderly friend, Mrs. Moore, visit the city of Chandrapur. As we know that the story is a pre-independence period, means the story highlights India before the independence. Right? So it is British India. Right? So the two British women, Adela and her friend, that is Mrs. Moore, and we know that Adela is the would-be daughter-in-law of Mrs. Moore. So both the ladies come to India with two intentions. The first intention was to have a friendship with India, to understand Indians, to see Indian culture also. And one more reason, and that is the son of Mrs. Moore, that is Ronnie Haslock, he serves as a British officer in India. Right? So Mrs. Moore and Adela comes India to meet Ronnie also. So both the ladies, they are quite excited, right? And they are excited as they want to visit India. They want to talk, or let's say, converse with Indians. They want to have a friendly relationship with Indian people. So a lot of curiosity is there in the minds of both the ladies. So with a great hope and enthusiasm, they come to India, right? So Adela, as we discussed, that is to decide if she wants to marry Mrs. Moore's son, that is Ronnie Haslock, right? And Ronnie Haslock is the city magistrate, right? And Adela want to make a decision if she wants really to marry Mrs. Moore's son, that is Ronnie Haslock. As we know that Adela is engaged with Ronnie Haslock, but still she is a little bit confused regarding the marriage. She herself is not sure if she loves Ronnie or not. So she comes to India to have a confirmed decision regarding her marriage with Ronnie. Right. So we come to know about the protagonist of our novel, that is Dr. Aziz. We see him as a young Indian Muslim physician, that is a doctor, and he thinks it is possible to be a friend of Englishman. Right. So Dr. Aziz has an opinion that Indians should have friendly relationship with the British, but on one condition, that the British should treat Indians with respect. Right. So when the story opens, as the story's first part has the title Mosque, that is Masjid, we see a mosque, right? And in that mosque, we see Dr. Aziz, and he has come over there to offer his prayers. So at the mosque, he meets the English woman, that is Mrs. Moore, and that is their first meeting in the story. So in the beginning, it is Mrs. Moore who breaks the ice. It is Mrs. Moore who starts the conversation with Dr. Aziz. In the beginning, Dr. Aziz is quite not sure regarding the open-mindedness of Mrs. Moore. So he is a little bit doubtful, right? Why he is a little bit doubtful? Dr. Aziz feels that the British people, they don't treat Indians properly. So in the beginning, Dr. Aziz assumes wrongly that Mrs. Moore, as she is also a British, must not have, may not have a respect for the Indians. That's why in the beginning, he is not interested to have a talk with Mrs. Moore. But when Mrs. Moore opens her mind regarding Indians and she shares the feelings of friendliness with Dr. Aziz, Dr. Aziz slowly changes his attitude towards Mrs. Moore. And now Mrs. Moore and Dr. Aziz, they start having friendly conversation, right? And we can say that they become good friends, right? So Dr. Aziz is the first Indian friend of Mrs. Moore, right? And what happens? Mrs. Moore returns to the British Club. As you know, that British Club is a place where all the English people live over there. That is the colony of the British people. And Mrs. Moore comes back to the British Club, and she is so much excited, and she wants to share her experience, and she wants to inform her would-be daughter-in-law, that is Adela, and her son Ronnie, about her first Indian friend, that is Dr. Aziz. And Mrs. Moore comes over there and informs Adela and Ronnie about their friend, that is Dr. Aziz. And we can say that we have an opposite attitude regarding this friendship. So the response of Adela and the response of Ronnie are are quite opposite regarding the friendship between Dr. Aziz and Mrs. Moore. And what is the opposite attitude? Adela is also excited, and she is so happy that Mrs. Moore got the first Indian friend. But on the other hand, Ronnie is not interested. In the beginning, Ronnie assumed that the friend must be some Englishman, right? But the moment when he learns that the friend of Mrs. Moore is an Indian, that is Dr. Aziz, that moment Ronnie becomes angry. And he declares that there cannot be a friendship between an Englishman and the Indians, as the English are the superior people, right? So he feels that the English ladies, that is Mrs. Moore and Adela, they should be away from the Indians. But both the ladies ignore his advice, contract, right? And we know that Adela is excited to meet Indians. So Adela also wants to meet Indian people, and especially the new friend of Mrs. Moore. So the story moves forward, and we see the second movement in the story, that is which part. We find a character, that is Mr. Turton. He is a city tax collector. As the name indicates, he is British. The city tax collector invites many Indian gentlemen to a party at his own house to help the English women to meet Indians. And Mrs. Adela and Mrs. Moore, they meet Mr. Turton and they share their view that they want to meet more and more Indians. So Mr. Turton invites some Indian people and throws a party, and that party has got the name that is Bridge Party. And in that Bridge Party, the members are British and Indians. So in the party, we got two groups, that is British and Indians. But what happens in the party, as we know that British are having superior attitude over the Indians. So the British people never treat Indians with respect. And that is why the Indian people who come to the British party, they are doubtful regarding the intentions of the British people. So though the party has British and the Indians, but we can say that they make a drama of friendship. So we don't find in Bridge Party a true sense of friendship between the British and the Indians. It is just a drama. So I just say hi, hello, how are you, nice to meet you, how do you do, and nothing more than that. So the party is not a big hit as expected by the two English ladies, right? So in that party, Adela meets Cyril Fielding. As you know that Fielding is the principal of Chandrapur's government-run college for the Indians. And Fielding becomes a friend of Adela and Mrs. Moore. As you know that Fielding, Adela and Mrs. Moore, they three are the British, right? And it is noteworthy that Dr. Aziz has not been invited to the Bridge Party. So we can say that most of the characters or most of the invited guests to the Bridge Party are the British, and the Indians are in less in number, very few people, right? So a positive thing in a Bridge Party is what there is a friendly relationship among Fielding, Adela and Mrs. Moore. So in that party, Mrs. Moore shares that she has got an Indian friend, that is Dr. Aziz, and she shares this thing with Fielding, right? So they decide to have a tea party. They decide to have a tea party. So Fielding arranges a tea party and he invites Adela, Mrs. Moore, then Professor Godbole, and he also invites Dr. Aziz, right? So this is the positive side of the Bridge Party, right? So we get the atmosphere of friendship over here. So after Bridge Party, Fielding arranges a tea party, right? And the main intention of tea party is to have a friendly relationship between the British and the Indians. So at Fielding's tea party, everyone has a good time conversing about India, and Fielding Aziz become good friends. So for the first time in the story, there is a meeting between Dr. Aziz and Fielding, right? And Fielding becomes a good friend of Dr. Aziz. So we can say that Bridge Party is a flop one, but Fielding's tea party is a hit as far as the friendly relationship between the British and Indians are concerned, right? So we have a friend circle, and in that friend circles we have Fielding, we have Adela, we have Mrs. Moore, we have Professor Godbole, right? And we have Dr. Aziz. So these five friends, yes, they create a friend circle. As you know that this friend circle is made of British and Indian friends, right? So each and every character is quite excited regarding their new friendship. And what happens? Ronnie informs the British people, his British friends, about Marabar caves. He informs them that a fine spot is there, fine picnic spot is there, that is Marabar caves, and that is very near to Chandrapur city. So Aziz arranges a picnic to Marabar caves and he invites all the friends, that is filling the English ladies, right, to see Marabar caves. So all the characters are excited to visit Marabar caves and they are very confident that they would have more Indian friends, right? So the English ladies are quite excited and they are confident that more Indian friends they would have and they would have a chance to see Indian location, to see or let's say to meet the variety of Indians along with Indian culture. So in the tea party, we see the arrival of the villain, that is Ronnie Haslop. And when Ronnie Haslop arrives over there and he finds that the British characters, that is filling his mother, that is Mrs. Moore, his would-be wife, Adela, they are having a friendly conversation with the Indians. At that time, Ronnie becomes angry, right? And he disturbs the tea party. He disturbs the tea party. As we know that Ronnie hates the Indians, right? And he breaks up the party. So here the tea party ends.